Hey, Justin, I caught you while you're out on a Saturday, and I wanted to have a conversation about Chat GPT and its impact on learning today because I'm seeing it explode, and we are both so busy. This might be the only chance we can have this conversation.
Well, you're right, Martin. It's something that I think we're definitely going to have to be aware of in all of the education, even down to potentially even high school and advanced classes with the hybrid method we've got going after COVID. Glad to be with you today.
Yeah. And one of the things you talked about before is that part of this might get us back to some good stuff in education because it's so easy for a student to do all his homework on ChatGPT, then he can run it through, then he can edit it a little bit and change it and run it through tests to see if it fails. And still kind of game the system, even with AI detectors or the equivalent of plagiarizing detectors.
That's right. Many of your Chat GPT included actually come with built-in plagiarism checkers to where as they're writing and you could say thinking it over, they're also checking the internet. And I think too, that probably even includes potentially databases like ProQuest, Eric, and other things that they have access to. So I think what that's going to mean for the education system is we're going to have to, merge the new school with the old school again. Face-to-face proctoring.
Yeah, that's it. Face-to-face proctoring. It kind of explain that because I think that's a very important aspect we might have to get back to.
So that's where in person, the student's going to have to come into a secure testing center or to a classroom with an instructor present that can monitor whether it's paper testing or online testing, actually monitor the student completing the work. Other tools that can replace that as well that used to be common were internet testing settings where if a student tried to dual monitor or tried to click out of the testing screen, they would already automatically have their test submitted. So if they're struggling on question 5 out of 20 and try to go to Chat GPT when the instructor's not looking or at home, it would automatically submit, and anything they haven't answered or got wrong, that would be their final score. Things that keep the student from being able to exit the screen. So again, we mentioned face-to-face proctoring, restrictive websites, and even instructors having to work harder, which is going to put more work on the educational system to come up with a variety of methods that have to be used to ensure it's not AI written. The one thing identifier to AI, ChatGPT even, is as skilled as it is, and it hasn't passed the Turing test. So what you're experiencing is repetitive information, certain phrases that don't make sense, things like that I think would be more difficult to identify on the high school, college level because you have novice writers. But once you get to the undergrad, master's level, I think anybody who has any type of experience instructing and grading, they're going to run into, this doesn't seem right. This doesn't seem right for this level. But if you have a student who's under duress, stressful situation, and they know enough about the topic, I think it's going to be near impossible.
Yeah. I think another important thing that's good on this is it might get us back in the academic system to get students to work on thinking, in assignments that involve actually thinking on their feet and thinking in person and solving problems. And of course, this needs to be somewhat monitored, but I think that's going to be another key thing because when I talk to professionals that work with engineers and PhDs coming out of schools for years, the business world has been complaining that some of the top engineers just aren't as good at thinking, at really solving advanced problems where you have a time period of not knowing, where you actually keep yourself in that area of stress, of an unresolved question using your conscious and unconscious mind over time. And I think that's one of the issues. You were talking about getting your PhD and how it would relate to machine learning and how it demanded you to really think.
Right. So my PhD focused primarily on executive leadership. I focused more on the economic route and in training, the impacts that it has on your local economy and everything. But one of the big factors that I focused on in my dissertation was about work skills, skills gaps in the workplace, skills equilibrium when you have a skilled workforce leaving, or skilled members of the workforce leaving and unskilled workers coming in there, it offsets the equilibrium, which means it alters the balance. But when you have mid-level skilled individuals who are relying heavily on AI and machine learning rather than learning the skills, these entry-level individuals don't have guides or resources to mentor them like usual. So you think of a production line, someone who manages the mechanics of the robotics. Robotics aren't advanced enough right now to be able to fix themselves. But the individual who they refer to as the gray hairs nowadays, the individuals who normally would have repaired a robotic arm, are when you get to a certain point, there's nobody who can do that anymore. And they have to either call people back in from retirement, or they have to refer to people who are specialists who are going to cost the company much more money than expected. And so that hurts the bottom line. So if you think you have a small business that is already struggling, maybe they do specific specialty equipment, and they are already struggling on making ends meet, or the bottom line is a little more stretched than normal, and then they start losing equipment that they have nobody to repair, then they can't afford to bring somebody in from Sweden or even the next state that can repair their robotic arm. That's what a lot of people don't realize. Even some of these small businesses that are specialized, they may have a machine that has Ferrari, and yes, like the car, Ferrari parts. And I don't think most local fabrication shops have worked on Ferrari parts before. But one thing that allows them to live is having someone who can fabricate that, can run a CNC machine, can run certain machines and functions, and work with tech support. But if you have somebody who the robotics side or AI has completed all of that in the past, and you lose them, then that's a heavy lift. And for some small businesses who meet somewhat of that situation, they can't recover from that. They lose business, and while they're losing business, they're either losing business with no way of producing product, or they're losing business and they can't afford to get production up and running. And many times it's so specialized, as you've seen, Martin, it's so specialized that they have no backup. For example, it's not like if GM loses stock, they can sell more Chevrolets or Buicks. And they have a backup. They have alternative means of income. A lot of small businesses are so specialized that it's almost like an Achilles heel. If they lose this one product, they're done.
There are several things I see are really important here. One is the community colleges need to do some reevaluation of where will be the jobs as more and more machine learning takes over content. Where are going to be the needs? Where are the skills and and information? Where are the skills going to be needed in the future. You know, we are, and again, that gets back to getting people better at problem solving and real world three-dimensional things, especially on something new, because still most of AI is specialized machine learning. It's not, you know, the computer that runs in a Tesla can't play chess if it's never been trained to do that yet. So I think that's another area that you're pointing to, is that the community colleges need to do some real ramping up, and I hope they'll bring you in for consulting on it, because you've been thinking about it a lot on how do we retool our offerings so we're ready for this future that's coming at an extremely fast rate, and just trying to get people to be AI programmers or machine learning programmers, that's not enough, because even chatbot GPT has shown it can generate some code, it can test some code, give it 5 years and it'll get better and better. So what will be the next jobs? And again, certain levels of flexible problem solving where you can move to different dynamics and solve problems on the fly. That's still going to take a while for it, because that's more generalized AI to get forward in. And then a lot of hands-on jobs are still going to be in demand. What I've heard is many of the jobs that will be threatened by this are actually what, lawyers and doctors, where they'll need a doctor, but they won't need 12 doctors. They'll have 3 doctors, and then they'll be working with the machine learning system to train and cross-train it. Or attorneys, instead of having a floor of attorneys, they'll have a smaller group that interact with the machine learning system.
Right, more like information research and transfer.
Yeah.
And what's really, so you have artificial intelligence, you're working on artificial general intelligence, like you said, where AGI is more really good at one thing.
Yeah.
What's really going to be what terrifies people like Elon Musk is artificial superintelligence, or as some people refer to it as the
generalized machine learning, where a system can take on something it's never seen before in multiple areas and interact with the world. And that's the walk towards.
Essentially,
go ahead.
Right. And we're generalized intelligence.
Yes.
Martin, Justin Rose could be incredibly experienced in this one thing, and yet I can still fix my shelf at home, even though I'm not a carpenter.
Right.
But you're talking about the carpenter who can fix the shelf while performing brain surgery.
Yeah, right.
And it's a thing, they call it, it's a singularity, because there's no timeline, no project manager who sees it coming. It's just going to happen one day.
Yeah.
Some code is going to string together, and it's going to happen. And that's what terrifies people.
Right. Well, as my t-shirt says, fear stupid AI is our greatest threat right now. And that's a simplified automated system that goes astray and has control over things that can do a lot of harm. The old idea of a machine that can take anything and make you in the paperclip gets rogue and then turns the whole world into paper clips. So, but getting back to the academic. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, you're right. And what you just said is, Elon Musk puts it the best way is, everybody thinks Skynet, and it's fun to joke about Skynet.
Yeah.
But as he puts it, if, Martin, if you're building a deck on your house and there's an anthill in the way, you take care of the ants because it's fire ants. You don't want to step in them and whatnot. And you don't even have to do anything to the ants. Just by you building your deck to your house could mean that they have to move their whole civilization. You weren't angry at the ants. You didn't want to hurt the ants, but the ants are in your way. That's what artificial intelligence is to humans. We're the ants. It's going to do what it's going to do the most efficiently way it can do it. And we're just going to have to adapt.
Yeah. Well, I thought we would wrap it up because you probably need to get in the car, and I refuse to do this while you're driving. So I just want to, in summary, the thing of it is the educational system is going to have to change, and I don't think that's bad. And the reason is, I think we've gotten into an echo chamber and we've got into automated systems and processes where we're going to have to move more to getting the student to build real mastery, to learn real thinking skills, to be able to face things they don't like and disagree and look at multiple angles at it. And I think that's going to give them the next competitive advantage. And I think this is, to me, could be very good news, because I went to St. Andrews College, and it was which is now St. Andrews University. And the teacher, if I brought up an idea and it was aligned with his political bias, he'd make me take the opposite position and embrace it, to stretch me, even though it's not what he thought. And that's called learning to think. That's called giving yourself a competitive advantage today. And I think that's, to me, going to be an important aspect of schools, that they really stretch people and get them and get serious. We're preparing you for the AI future that's coming at you today. And I think that could be a great marketing. And you say up front, we're going to get you to take topics you hate and dislike and argue them. They used to do that in debate. We had to pull a card out and you go, wow, I completely disagree with it. Now I have a half an hour to argue it as though it's the most important thing in my life. And this type of thinking skill is, to me, the one way of survival for these systems to stay employable, without just everybody's dependent on the state, dependent on the government. And then, of course, we all know in history that never goes well for the individual, and never has and never will.
No, you're right. Never will. I totally agree.
Where do you think some of especially since you're working in a community college, where's a few areas they should start with this? You already said we might need to get more controlled learning environments so we know what they're doing. We can't just rely on automated systems to prove it's not machine learning, because they'll learn to beat that. And I'll let you finish that up.
So really it's all going to start with awareness, faculty, staff awareness. Yeah. Students are already using it. Some of the faculty and staff are already aware of it and using it. The big thing is going to be awareness and training. And you're really going to need awareness on a state level, because, it's not just community colleges, it's everywhere. And so if your staff and faculty don't even know what to look for or what it's capable of, then you're going to have this, I don't want to say corruption, but you're going to have this influence in the education system long before it's ever dealt with. Yep. Or even, it's almost going to be part of the system before anything's ever done. And that, sadly, is how most policy is created. But just bringing awareness to it is going to be the first thing, that it is serious. It's not sci-fi anymore. It's here.
Yeah. And I think I just want to put in a plug for you. I recommend you as an advisor on that, because I think you're really good at seeing patterns and structures and teaching people, either from technology to break it down so they understand it, but also teaching, if they brought you in to develop a program to teach educators on how do we know where the tipping points are, the students using this stuff or not, and how do we build systems so that we can get them to actually build mastery and skills that have to be earned and can't be taken away by just somebody offering some new technology.
Yeah, that's right. And that's right where we need to be. We need to have more people like that who are able to identify and make it relevant.
Well, Justin, thanks for jumping on. I hope people appreciate this, that we're running 7 days a week between you being a family man and doing your passion of work. We finally got this conversation we wanted, and now you're ready to go. And this was fantastic. I'll put links to your contact information below as well.
All right. Thank you. Awesome. And we'll be talking more about it soon, I'm sure.
Sounds good.